If your mind breaks every time life pushes, then you're not free, you're fragile. And no, motivation won't save you. Discipline will. Clarity will. The kind of clarity the Stoics mastered thousands of years ago. While empires collapsed, while people panicked, they stood still, calm, calculated, untouchable. So ask yourself, why do you keep reacting? Why do you waste energy on what you can't control, beg for validation, fear discomfort, and silence your potential to stay comfortable? This ends today. In this video, you'll learn 10 ruthless Stoic principles that will rewire your mind for power, silence, and self-command. If you apply just one of these, nothing and no one will be able to hold you back. But you have to decide, will you keep watching passively, or will you train your mind to become unshakable? Hit that like button, subscribe, and pay attention, because the people who master this don't just survive chaos, they own it.
Number 1.
Control what you can. When the world tightens its grip, most people flail at everything outside them. Traffic, gossip, algorithms, the next market crash. Yet the Stoics remind us that the only battlefield worth fighting on is inside the mind. Marcus Aurelius, writing by the dim light of a Roman dawn, sifted through plague reports and political betrayals, then ended each entry with the same refrain: "This is in my control, that is not." He did not numb himself to reality. Instead, he carved a razor-sharp line between what demands his effort and what deserves only observation. Fast forward to Serena Williams stepping onto center court after a brutal injury. Reporters pressed her about losing her ranking. She smiled and said, "I can't control the scoreboard, only my swing." That single sentence, pure Stoicism, cut through the noise. She focused on her grip, her breath, her first step after the toss. Scoreboards followed. Here's the insight. Control is a circle that shrinks the moment you push its edges. Rage at traffic and you surrender the wheel of your nervous system. Obsess over a critic online and you hand them the keys to your mood. Instead, draw the circle smaller. Your breath, your posture, the story you tell yourself about what just happened. Then paradoxically, influence expands outward. Now transition to practice. Begin each dawn with 2 columns. Command and surrender. Under command, list what you can shape today. Your rituals, your tone in conversation, your next deliberate action. Under surrender, list the stock market, the weather, other people's opinions. Glance at the second list once, then label it off limits. Shift every watt of energy to column 1. By nightfall, you will feel a surge of agency no motivational meme can match. Furthermore, adopt micro-disciplines. When an email arrives dripping with passive aggression, pause, feel your pulse. Decide your reply will be short, factual, and free of heat. In that moment, you become the architect, not the debris. When disappointment lands, an opportunity lost, a friend who ghosts you, inhale deeply and ask Marcus's question. Does this belong inside my circle? If not, escort it to the door. Remember, control is not domination, it is stewardship. A gardener cannot command the sun, yet by tending soil and water he feeds a nation. Likewise, tend the inner soil, your choices, your attitude, and watch the outer landscape bend. Master this principle, and every storm becomes background noise. Every setback a prompt to tighten your grip on the one lever no one can steal. Your response, Epictetus, once a slave, taught that freedom is won the moment you refuse to blame. Each time you catch yourself saying, "They made me angry," replace it with, "I allowed it." Responsibility feels heavy at first, but it is lighter than the chains of resentment. Wear it daily.
Number 2.
Silence is power. In a world addicted to noise, the one who holds their tongue becomes the most unpredictable presence in the room. Today, everyone wants to be heard, but the Stoic understands The real advantage comes not from being loud, but from being still. Seneca warned that constant chatter dulls the blade of thought. The more we speak, the less we mean. The more we explain, the less we are understood. The Stoic doesn't speak to fill silence, he speaks to end confusion. Now consider this. Silence is not weakness, it is a test. The test of whether you need to prove yourself or whether your presence is already enough. Keanu Reeves, for instance, has become an icon not just for what he says, but for what he chooses not to say. In interviews, he pauses for long stretches, he thinks before he answers, and people lean in. That's the paradox. Silence, when used with intention, speaks volumes. It creates presence. It generates authority. And most of all, it keeps your power close, not spilled across every conversation. But why is silence so rare? Because most people fear what it reveals. When you stop speaking, you hear your own thoughts. You feel discomfort. You notice your need to interrupt, correct, defend. And that's exactly where your power begins. When you sit with that impulse without acting on it, you build a deeper kind of strength, the kind Epictetus taught when he said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." Apply this. Let silence be your first move. When insulted, pause. When tempted to overshare, pause. When the urge to prove, argue, or explain arises, pause, not forever. Just long enough to remind yourself that speaking is not a reflex. It's a decision, a choice that should always serve clarity, not ego. Moreover, silence reveals. When you stop trying to control the narrative, you start to see people for who they are. Their motives, fears, and games leak through the silence. You learn more about someone by letting them fill the gap than by forcing your perspective. As Marcus Aurelius noted, the wise man listens and looks with the same attention he gives to his own thoughts. And here's the truth. The people who talk the most are rarely the ones in control. Power doesn't announce itself. It watches, it calculates, it speaks when the impact is guaranteed. So speak less. Let others wonder what you're thinking. Let them feel the weight of your presence, not just the volume of your voice. In the end, silence isn't retreat, it's restraint. It's choosing to hold your sword rather than swing it blindly. And in that restraint, you become dangerous, not to harm, but to command. Because when you do choose to speak, your words land with the force of someone who didn't need to talk, but chose to. That is power, and that is Stoicism in action.
Number 3. Embrace discomfort.
Most people do everything in their power to avoid discomfort. They chase comfort like it's a reward, when in truth, it's a trap. The Stoics knew better. They knew that a life too comfortable weakens the soul. Seneca, one of the richest and most respected figures in Rome, deliberately spent time living as if he had lost everything. He slept on the ground. He wore rough clothes. He ate the simplest meals. Why? To remind himself that he could survive it, that comfort was optional, but courage was not. This practice wasn't about punishment. It was preparation. Seneca called it premeditatio malorum, preparing the mind for what could go wrong, not to panic, but to train for peace. The more familiar you are with discomfort, the less it controls you, the less you need from the world to feel grounded. And this isn't just ancient wisdom. Look at David Goggins. Once overweight and broken, he transformed himself through relentless hardship. He runs for miles when his body screams to stop. He seeks out pain, not for drama, but for transformation. He says, suffering is the true test of life. That's not bravado. That's Stoicism in action. Choosing the difficult path, not because it's glamorous, but because it forges the version of yourself you respect most. So what does this mean for you right now? Start choosing discomfort on purpose. Take a cold shower. not to suffer, but to remind your body who's in charge. Walk instead of drive. Wake up earlier than you want to. Skip the easy response in a tough conversation and choose the honest one instead. You're not doing this for reward, you're doing it for control. Control over your impulses, control over your fear, control over your life. Moreover, discomfort expands your identity. Every time you face something hard and get through it, you send your mind a message. I don't quit. That message compounds. It builds a core that doesn't flinch when life hits back, because it will. And when it does, you'll already be strong. Not from luck, but from choice. And here's the deeper truth. Comfort doesn't equal peace. It often leads to stagnation, to softness, to a slow erosion of your edge. But the person who leans into discomfort, they're not just strong. They're awake, present, alert, ready. They've turned suffering into a sharpening stone. So embrace discomfort, not once, not when it's convenient, but as a daily ritual, a reminder that growth is a decision, and suffering, when chosen, is the path to true freedom. Not the kind that waits for better conditions, the kind that's built inside, unbreakable, unbothered, unstoppable.
Number 4.
Your thoughts shape your reality. There's a simple truth the Stoics held above almost all others. It's not events that disturb us, but our judgment of them. That phrase comes from Epictetus, a man born into slavery who became one of the most influential philosophers of all time. He didn't say this to be poetic. He said it because he lived it. Day after day, chained to conditions he could not change, he discovered that no external force, not cruelty, not chaos, could shape his experience more than his own thoughts. This insight isn't just ancient, it's eternal. Consider Oprah Winfrey. Raised in poverty, abused, dismissed. She had every reason to view herself as a victim, but she didn't. She rewrote the story. Not because life suddenly got easier, but because she changed how she thought about it. You become what you believe, she said. That's Stoicism, modernized, not magic, not denial, but mastery of perception. Now let's bring this down to earth. You lose your job. One person says, this is the end. Another says, this is my beginning. Same event, different thought. One collapses, the other builds. What changed? Not the facts, just the frame. Your thoughts are the lens through which you experience life. And if your lens is smudged by fear, resentment, or self-pity, then every situation looks worse than it is. The Stoic approach is to clean the lens daily, to ask, is this thought useful? Is it true? Is it aligned with who I want to become? Furthermore, Stoicism teaches us to challenge the initial reaction. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That power begins with awareness. You don't have to believe every thought that shows up. You can observe it, question it, replace it. Try this practice, and whenever you catch yourself spiraling into negativity, pause, say to yourself, this is just a thought, it's not the truth. Then offer yourself a better one. Not blind positivity, but grounded clarity. Instead of, I can't handle this, say, this is hard, but I've handled worse. That's not lying to yourself. That's reminding yourself of your strength. And gratitude? It's not a trend. It's a Stoic discipline. Every time you choose to focus on what remains instead of what was lost, you train your brain to spot power instead of pain. That's how the Stoic becomes unshakable. Not by controlling life, but by mastering the story they tell themselves about life. Control your thoughts and you control your world. Let them run wild and you live as a prisoner inside your own head. So guard your mind like a fortress, refuse entry to beliefs that weaken you, and remember, the most powerful freedom is not changing your circumstances. It's changing how you see them.
Number 5.
Detach from others' opinions. The moment you begin living for the approval of others is the moment you abandon your own path. The Stoics warned against this trap over and over again, not because opinions are harmful in themselves, but because our attachment to them makes us weak, Marcus Aurelius wrote. It never ceases to amaze me. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. That contradiction is at the heart of most suffering today. It starts small. You hold back from speaking the truth to keep the peace. You say yes when you mean no. You scroll endlessly, checking if your post performed well, if you were seen, liked, validated. But each time you do this, your identity becomes less about who you are and more about who you're trying to impress. That's not self-expression. That's self-erasure. Now consider Howard Schultz, former CEO of Starbucks. When he returned to lead the company during a financial crisis, critics attacked him from all sides. Shareholders doubted him. The media mocked him. But Schultz focused on rebuilding the company from the inside out. One store, one culture shift at a time. He later said, "You have to maintain your conviction when everything around you is telling you to quit." That's Stoicism in real time, valuing internal alignment over external applause. So how do you reclaim that power? Start by asking, whose voice is running your life? Is it a parent you're still trying to please? A critic who lives rent-free in your mind? An audience of strangers who will never know the cost of your compromise? Identify it, then confront it. Because until you name the influence, you cannot break free from it. Furthermore, stop outsourcing your self-worth. You don't need praise to be valuable, and you don't need permission to be real. The Stoics believed your worth is innate, rooted in your virtue, not your visibility. You could be unknown to the world and still live with the dignity of a king, because reputation is a shadow, character is substance, and it's character, not commentary, that defines the truly free person. In practice, create more without explaining. Speak truth without softening it for comfort. Say no without justifying. Every time you do, you reclaim a little more of yourself. And with that comes something rare. Peace that doesn't depend on public opinion, direction that isn't shaken by likes or silence. Ultimately, detachment doesn't mean indifference. It means clarity. It means knowing that the only opinion that matters is the one you'll answer to in the mirror. And in your final moments, when your life flashes before your eyes, it won't be the applause you remember. It'll be the moments you stayed true, the times you chose yourself. Number 6, Memento Mori, remember you will die. At the core of Stoic philosophy lies a simple, jarring truth. You are going to die, and you don't know when. To the untrained mind, that sounds like a curse. But to the Stoic, it's liberation. Because when you remember that death is always near, you stop wasting time. You stop arguing about nonsense. You stop pretending you'll live forever, and you start living with urgency, presence, and purpose. Marcus Aurelius kept death at the forefront of his thoughts, not to be morbid, but to stay clear. He wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." That's not fear. It's focus. That kind of awareness slices through distraction like a blade. It forces you to ask, if this were my last day, would I still be doing this? Would I still be chasing their approval? Would I still be waiting for the right moment? This is not just theory. Steve Jobs, when asked how he made bold decisions at Apple, said he looked in the mirror each morning and asked, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do today? And when the answer was no, too many days in a row, he changed something. That's Stoicism in action, letting mortality guide you, not into despair, but into decisiveness. But most people run from this idea. They distract themselves, they numb the thought of death with entertainment, with busy work, with denial. And yet, in that denial, they waste the one thing they cannot replace: time. The Stoics sees time as sacred, Epictetus said. You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire. In other words, we fear what might happen, yet live as if we'll never run out of days. That contradiction is the root of regret. So how do you apply Memento Mori? Begin by facing it. Write down this sentence every morning: I may die today. Let it humble you. Let it sharpen you. Then look at your calendar, your to-do list, your obligations, and ask, does this matter? If not, let it go. If yes, give it your full presence. Furthermore, speak the truth you've been avoiding. Apologize to those you've wronged. Forgive those who hurt you. Start that project you've been delaying. Tell people you love them. Not later, now, because Memento Mori isn't just about death. It's about life. And only those who remember their dying begin to truly live. In the end, you won't remember every moment, but you will feel whether you lived with intention or drifted in distraction. So hold this thought close. You're not promised tomorrow, and that's not something to fear. It's the ultimate reminder to live now. Number 7, choose action over excuses. The Stoics had no patience for those who sat around waiting for the perfect moment. They believed that wisdom without action is empty. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." In other words, your problem isn't time, it's hesitation, it's delay. It's the endless list of excuses you use to stay comfortable. I'll start tomorrow. I'm not ready yet. The timing isn't right. But life doesn't wait, and neither should you. Look at J.K. Rowling. Before Harry Potter became a global phenomenon, she was a single mother on welfare, writing in cafes while her daughter slept beside her. She had no safety net, no guarantee of success, just a story and the will to write it day after day in obscurity. She was rejected by publisher after publisher, but she didn't stop. That's what Stoic action looks like: persistence without applause, courage without certainty, and motion without the promise of reward. Too often people confuse motion for movement. They plan, they journal, they visualize. But the Stoic draws a sharp line between thinking and doing. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "Don't waste the rest of your life wondering what a good person is. Be one." In that one sentence lies the antidote to procrastination. Stop romanticizing the path and take the first step. So how do you begin? You make it small. Action doesn't need to be heroic. It just needs to be honest. Want to write a book? Start with one paragraph. Want to change your health? Take one walk. Want to heal a relationship? Send one real message. The Stoic doesn't obsess over the outcome. They focus on the process, because momentum isn't born from motivation. It's born from movement, and clarity only comes after you act, not before. Moreover, action destroys fear. Every time you take one step forward, you break the illusion that you're trapped. You give your mind evidence that you are not powerless, and that evidence repeated becomes identity. You become someone who moves, even when it's hard, even when no one sees it, even when the future is uncertain. That's Stoic strength, doing the right thing without waiting for the perfect mood. And let's be honest, perfect conditions don't exist. The Stoics practiced in the cold, in discomfort, in the middle of ordinary life. They didn't wait for silence. They created clarity in the noise. You don't need more time. You need fewer excuses. In the end, every excuse is a quiet permission slip to stay small. And every act, no matter how small, is a declaration that you are building something. So stop talking, stop delaying, start. Because as Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Number 8, learn to say no. Most people don't burn out from doing too little. They burn out from saying yes to everything. They carry the weight of other people's priorities, other people's guilt, other people's urgency, until they can no longer feel their own pulse. The Stoics would call this a failure of boundaries, not because others are evil, but because you never taught them how to respect your space. Seneca warned against this. He wrote, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." In other words, if you don't have a direction, you'll get pulled by every demand, every invitation, every obligation. And eventually you'll look around and realize, this life isn't even yours anymore. It's a collage of other people's expectations. Look at someone like Warren Buffett, known for his discipline, not just in investing, but in time. He once said, "The difference between successful people and very successful people is that very successful people say no to almost everything." That's not arrogance, that's clarity. It's the refusal to dilute your energy just to keep others comfortable. The truth is, saying no isn't rejection, it's redirection. It's choosing what matters most over what's merely urgent. But most people fear it. They fear appearing selfish. They fear disappointing others. But in trying to please everyone, they betray themselves. The Stoic, however, understands that peace requires pruning. You cannot protect your energy if you keep letting everyone else spend it. So how do you practice this? First, define your non-negotiables, your time, your values, your focus. These are sacred. Guard them. When a request comes in, ask, does this align with who I'm becoming? If the answer is no, then the response is no. And you don't need a paragraph of justification. A simple, firm, "I can't commit to that" is enough. Because boundaries don't require explanation, they require consistency. Next, observe your inner dialogue. Notice the guilt that rises when you say no. The guilt is not a signal that you're wrong. It's a sign you're healing from people-pleasing. Breathe through it, stay the course. Each time you honor your time, you're rewiring your nervous system to believe, my needs matter too. Furthermore, understand this. Every yes is a trade. You're trading hours of your life, energy you'll never get back. So treat each yes like a contract, because it is. The Stoic way isn't about being harsh. It's about being precise. It's about knowing that your ability to say no is directly tied to your ability to say yes, fully, deliberately, and without resentment. In the end, learning to say no is learning to say yes to the life you actually want. Because boundaries aren't walls, they are doors. And only the right people, people who respect your path, will be invited through them. Number 9, master your emotions. Emotion is not the enemy, but being ruled by it is. The Stoics never told us to become cold or indifferent. They taught us to become rulers of our inner world. Epictetus made it clear. It's not things that disturb us, but our opinions about them. And what are opinions, if not emotional judgments we fail to examine? Until we master our emotions, we are not living, we are reacting. We become prisoners of our impulses, chained not by the world, but by the stories we haven't questioned. Most people let emotions lead. Anger speaks, so they lash out. Fear whispers, so they retreat. Shame rises, and they shrink. But every time you react without awareness, you hand your power away. You become a puppet pulled by invisible strings. The Stoic path offers a different route. Feel everything, but respond with precision. React less, reflect more, speak less, mean more. Now look at someone like Fred Rogers. Yes, Mr. Rogers. A man who carried a stillness into every space. He was criticized, ridiculed, even underestimated. Yet he never allowed the emotional chaos of others to infect his tone. He once said, "Feelings are mentionable and manageable." That's Stoic clarity. Emotional mastery isn't suppression, it's transformation. It's not about avoiding storms, It's about becoming the I within them. So how do you begin this process? First, create space between stimulus and response. Insert silence. A single breath can save you from 100 regrets, Marcus Aurelius journaled nightly. Not for therapy, but for training. He dissected his reactions. He named his fears. He watched his own mind like a student. Because you cannot master what you do not first observe, next turn emotion into a tool. Anger might be alerting you to crossed boundaries. Envy may point toward your neglected purpose. Fear could be your signal to prepare, not retreat. Instead of resisting these feelings, interrogate them. Ask, what truth is hidden inside this emotion? Let it teach you, but never let it drive the car. And yes, this is hard. At first you'll slip, you'll react, but every pause expands the distance between emotion and action. That space is sacred. That space is where you grow. With practice, you stop being owned by your feelings and start owning your responses. You shift from chaos to command. Furthermore, remember this: the calmest voice in the room is often the strongest. In conflict, in crisis, in confrontation. The one who doesn't flinch becomes the anchor, the lighthouse, and that composure. That's not genetic. That's trained, built through silence, reflection, and discipline. That's the Stoic advantage. In the end, emotional mastery isn't about perfection. It's about sovereignty. It's knowing that you can feel deeply and still choose wisely, that you can hurt and still act with honor. That's not weakness. That's what real strength sounds like. Number 10, practice radical gratitude. Gratitude is not a mood. It's not something you feel only when things go your way. It's a discipline, a chosen lens. And to the Stoic, it's a weapon, not to sugarcoat suffering, but to reclaim meaning from it. Marcus Aurelius, amidst illness, betrayal, and exhaustion, still wrote daily in his journal about what he was grateful for. Not because life was easy, but because clarity demanded it. This is what separates the strong from the weak. Most people are only thankful when life is generous. When the deal closes, when the praise comes, when the plan works. But the Stoic is different. The Stoic is grateful for the obstacles because they forge endurance, grateful for the pain because it sharpens clarity, grateful even for rejection because it redirects you to what matters. Look at Maya Angelou. Her life was marked by trauma, racism, and rejection. Yet she famously said, "Let gratitude be the pillow upon which you kneel to say your nightly prayer." That is radical. That is strength, to thank life not just for the light, but for the shadows that taught you to see. So how do you practice this level of gratitude? First, stop waiting for good things to feel grateful. Begin seeing all things as teachers. Missed the bus, a lesson in patience. Lost the job, a lesson in identity. Got hurt, a lesson in boundaries. The Stoic trains the mind to interpret setbacks as sacred signals, not curses. Every moment becomes usable. Every difficulty becomes data. Every trial becomes training. Next, write it down. Don't just feel gratitude, document it. Create a list each day. 3 things you're grateful for and why. Push past the surface. Don't just say, "I'm grateful for food." Say, "I'm grateful for food because it means I'm not at the mercy of hunger while I build." Gratitude becomes powerful when it is specific. It stops being a concept and becomes a compass. Furthermore, turn gratitude into action. It's not just a feeling to keep inside. It's something to express. Thank the people around you while you still can. Appreciate the silence. Acknowledge your progress. Gratitude reminds you that nothing is owed and everything is borrowed. And when you treat life like a gift, you stop taking it for granted and start rising to meet it. And here's the deepest truth. When you learn to be grateful for the hard things, you become unbreakable, because no one can take away your strength when it's rooted in appreciation. When life stops needing to be perfect in order for you to feel peace, you are free. In the end, the Stoic doesn't just count blessings. They create them through attention, through reflection, through radical, unshakable gratitude, not for what they wish they had, but for what they already hold. Now you know, power doesn't come from shouting, reacting, or chasing. It comes from silence, from restraint, from choosing the harder road again and again until discipline becomes your nature. The Stoics weren't just thinkers, they were doers, and now it's your turn. Don't just admire these 10 principles. Live them, pick one, apply it today. And if this video brought you clarity, peace, or strength, like it, share it, and subscribe for more. Because the path to becoming untouchable isn't loud, it's steady, and it starts right now, with you.